You can make a fill out of this just browsing it. Hi guys, welcome back. Today we're going to be reviewing Sounds of KSHMR Volume 4. Now since I started making music, Sounds of KSHMR have been my most heavily utilized sound packs. Any song I make, I probably have like a few samples at least from KSHMR. This time around, KSHMR dropped two versions. So we have the Splice version, which is 750 sounds. You can get it on Splice. And we have the complete version, which is $100. That contains 7,000 sounds. I'll be reviewing both, and I'll let you guys know what you should get, if you should even get it at all. So yeah, let's get into it. So the Splice Edition, it has 4 folders: drums, effects, tono, and vocals. I'm gonna go through the one-shots first. So for the acoustic drums, selection is very minimal. If you want acoustic drums, this is not the pack for you. Beatboxing, I don't usually use these, but again, not really anything to talk about. There's 12 claps here. They're alright. Now the clap selection isn't amazing on the Splice Edition. Most of them are very EDM-y. Cymbals, very disappointing. 2 crashes, 2 hi-hats, 2 open hats, and 2 rides. The closed hi-hats are very generic. Nothing that stands out really. Crashes, very EDM-y. The open hats, they do the job. And then the ride. The distorted drums, if you're making aggressive music, this is gonna fit. Yeah, they're pretty good. Drum enhancers, there's only 2. You can just pass this folder. Now, drum fills, I'm gonna play some. I'll say the drum fills are pretty good. I think there's about 30 drum fills. Yeah, so the kick selection is alright. It's, again, nothing to write home about. If you have any of the previous KSHMR packs or any other sample pack, the decap drums, the BWB ones, I would say they're better in terms of kick selection. Orchestral drums, the complete edition has plenty of orchestral drums, but the Splice version only has 2. That's a skip for me. There's 4 snaps here, and I would say that's 4 too many. How many snap samples do we need? So the snare selection is quite alright. It feels like an essential pack of all these different genres like hip-hop, moomba, synthwave. If you don't have any other sample packs, this is going to be great for your collection. There's a really hard metallic snare here that I really like. There's only 3 toms. Toms, skip. Now the drum loops. Now I don't usually use a lot of drum loops in my production because I like laying down the groove myself. However, I would say that these are very good. Quite the variety here. I see more use for these than the actual one-shots. Hi-hat loops, not a lot of them. There's around 10. They do the job, they're hi-hat loops. Percussion loops, these are very good for adding behind your main drum groove, like a groove enhancer. There are 5 shaker loops. It's shakers, you can just record them yourself. So overall, the drums, I would rate one-shots disappointing, drum loops actually quite good. Now the effects folder. Usually I tend to use quite a lot of KSHMR effects because some of them are very versatile and you can use them in anything. So the loops, not something you can use in every track. The one-shots are pretty good. There's a sufficient selection of sweep ups and sweep downs, so I would say that's good. The only thing I didn't get is, why are there 7 samples of war horns? Who's using war horns? There could have been a bit more sweep ups, sweep downs, stabs, reverses, risers, something like that. But no, we got 7 war horns, and thank you, KSHMR, I suppose. For a KSHMR pack, I'm used to a bit more variety, but we're working with 750 sounds. So I would say this is sufficient. Now moving on to the tonal. Now the guitar loops, they are so good, so clear, so crisp. They're usable in any type of song. Definitely worth it. They're very good. So the instruments folder is a bit of a mixed bag, but it comes with the nature of the folder itself. There's everything here: piano loops, whistles, strings, brass, everything. There's a lot of samples that I would use and a lot of samples that I wouldn't. A lot of these I can see being used in K-pop tracks. So the song starters, they're all high quality, very usable. They're separated into genres, instruments as well. Okay, synths. The loops are pretty good. They're solid like always. They have a decent variety in lo-fi, EDM, pop, synthwave, stuff like that. I would use quite a lot of them. Overall, for the tonal folder, I want to say it is definitely the seller for this pack. The Splice Edition just shines here. There's so many loops, there's a good variety, they're all high quality, they're all crisp, they're all catchy, and you're gonna be hearing a lot of these in songs to come now. Okay, finally, the vocals folder. Now I'm not gonna waste a lot of time here. I don't tend to use a lot of vocal samples in my production. I don't feel qualified enough to judge this folder. There are a decent selection of loops and stuff. I just prefer not using vocal chops in my production. Yeah, I stand with Olivia Rodrigo. we don't like vocal chops. Overall, Sounds of KSHMR 4, I would say tonal folder, worth it. Drum loops, still worth it. Drum one-shots, disappointing. Effects, good enough. So yeah, moving on to the complete edition. Now, this was a beast. This was a big sample pack to go through. Hopefully the structure is going to make sense. I'm going to try and follow the same structure as I did for the volume 4 Splice Edition. So I'm going to go drums, effects, tonal, vocals, and also the bonus folder, the VIP Friends of KSHMR. Let's speed through this. Acoustic drums, there's a great selection here. You can actually make a few very decent kits with this. I normally never use any beatboxing elements in my production. I don't go into this folder at all. However, some of these elements were very cool to layer with other drums. Sound pretty cool. You can actually layer that with a hat or even use as a hat. Now this, the claps, now that there's a bit of a selection. Hand claps, main claps, then pre-shifted claps, the ones that go. Reverb claps that I pretty much never use, because if you want a reverb clap, just make your own. Stadium claps, if you use that type of thing. And then the trap claps. So I would say the main claps and the hand claps are pretty good. The trap claps, if you don't have a lot of sample packs, these are going to be great for you. This wouldn't be my first go-to for trap claps. The main claps are very good. There's classic claps, there's more creative claps, there's jungle claps. Overall, very good. So the cymbals, I would maybe not even use any of the crashes because they sound very EDM-y. Not a fan of that. The closed hi-hat selection here is great. Obviously, there's a lot of samples here that you've probably heard or have in different packs, but there's also a great selection of new samples. The open hi-hats, though, were a bit disappointing. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail on the distorted drums, but there's a great selection of them here, unlike the Splice version. If you make aggressive music, these are going to fit like a glove. The drum enhancers, there's a bigger selection here. Fills, there's so many. We have short fills, long fills, acoustic fills, tom fills. If you're looking for a fill, you're going to find something here. There's a great selection of kicks here, and I wouldn't classify them as the folders right now, EDM, hip-hop, pop, so on. There's quite a lot of hip-hop kicks that I would use in pop music, quite a lot of EDM kicks that I would use in trap, so don't be put off by the labeling here. Obviously, we have the 808s. KSHMR 808s are very, very thick. And also, a great addition is the 808 top layers, like this. So orchestral drums, they are good. This is one of my favorite folders, as I said, and he doesn't disappoint. They were more aggressively distorted this time around, but still, there is a great selection. And I like how they're separated into high, low, and mid based on the frequency. The percussion folder greatly improves on the Splice Edition. I would say this is way better. There's so much more variety and so many more sounds. It is worth it. I would say pretty much all of these snares, other than the big snare, in my opinion, are very usable. Now, remember how I said that the tom section was disappointing in the Splice Edition? Well, he flips it completely 180. And in the complete edition, the toms are almost a selling point for me. There's so many toms here. We have individual toms, which, fine, they're all right. And then we go into the tom families, and there's so many, and they're all great. You can make a fill out of this just browsing it. And then moving on to the drum loops. If you thought the Splice Edition was good when it comes to drum loops, this is even better. The organization of the pack itself is stellar. Let's say you're in a studio and want an acoustic drum loop. You just throw this bad boy and you're done. Don't have to think twice about it. Let's say you want to make a disco song. You just grab disco loop 12. Let's stretch it to 2 bars. You already have a song, baby. I'm not even going to go through all of them. These are worth it, trust me. So yeah, overall, my grade for the drums would be like a 9 out of 10. Now moving on to the effects folder, some of these I will never use, like war horns and alarms. I would still highly recommend this folder, only because the sweeps and risers are so extensive. You have sweep up, sweep downs. The animals, although it might seem funny at first to have a bear noise, sometimes And especially because he has them labeled by note, ear candy element, I would say definitely worth it. Ambience and Foley is another ear candy mine here, more artificial based. I don't think that's how a real bird goes, but I'm not an ornithologist. I can't really talk about any of the other ones in terms of usability because I think they're more EDM based. The war horns, I'm again very surprised that there's so many war horns. There's 41 samples of war horns. But you know, if you use that type of thing, more power to you. Overall, I would say FX folder is great, mainly because of the sweeps and risers, ambience and Foley, and the animals. Here, they're not separated into one tonal folder. We have instruments, synths, and song starters. There are so many good samples here. The guitar samples are stellar. The brass samples, at first I wasn't super impressed, and then I got to the trumpet section, and there's so many good trumpet samples. Like, listen to this. Acoustic textures and action loops, I will probably not use super often, but there's some definitely useful samples here. Especially with the action loops, there's some strumming, muted strumming here. I can see use for these, definitely. Now everything else, this folder has so many just random elements that still slap. You have an accordion sample here. This is perfect for a goofy beat.
I say,
Something else I want to show here is the human whistle or the K-pop folder, because I guarantee you these are going to be in K-pop songs. If you need a real instrument, you will find it here. 10 out of 10. Now moving on to the synths. So the loops, I would maybe even just skip. If you don't make EDM music, I think they're not going to be very useful to you. The bass shots, however, some of them are really useful, and you can even use them instead of 808s. And then probably my least favorite sound in the any music is the scream bass. But if that's your thing, go for it. The synths, however, they have a great variety here. He labeled this ultra vibey, and I would agree with this. It's ultra vibey. I would say synths not as good as instruments, but definitely worth it. Then the song starters. There's definitely a great selection. It improves on the Splice Edition. There's way more here, and they're separated into genres. Let's say you're in a pop writing session and someone's like, oh, I need something that's, I don't know, kind of like a fairy tale. Oh, wow. There you go. On a lot of these, he separated them into stems, and that is very useful because sometimes I just want to use the chords for something. Props to KSHMR for doing this. It's amazing. Yeah, and I think this wraps up the tonal section. It has a great selection, especially the instruments. You can find something for every genre. I would rate this like a 10 out of 10. For vocals, I did find a lot of interesting samples in the ethnic and world section here. There's way more interesting samples here than in the rest of the folder. And then finally, the VIP friends of KSHMR. I'm not super impressed by these. All of KSHMR sound much better. So yeah, that's his flex folder. It's a flex to say, oh, I got Zed to send me a snare buildup.
What is Zed like? I work a lot, I work very hard, but when I'm at home, I'm boring.
It is an 808 snare that just goes up in pitch slightly and then it just builds up. That's it. So why is it from Zed? I don't know, but you do you. This sample pack is great. It doesn't disappoint. It's a great addition to the Sounds of KSHMR series. And yeah, now I'll show you a flowchart that I designed. If you should get it, and if you should get it, which version should you get? So we start with, do you make music? If your answer is no, why are you even here, Chief? If your answer is yes, what genre of music do you make? If you make EDM, are you broke? If the answer is yes, get the Splice Edition. You have a credit card, get the Complete Edition. If you said you make pop, get the Complete Edition. It's just worth it. If you said hip hop, do you make boom bap? Or do you lean more towards trap? If you said boom bap, give this one a pass. I don't think there's enough content in either pack to make it worth your while. If you're making trap, do you need drums? Are you happy with just melodies? I'm happy with only melodies. Just get the Splice Edition. If you need both, get the Complete Edition. And yeah, that concludes my video. Complete Edition is worth it. I've used Sounds of KSHMR Volume 3 since 2018, and I use it in every song. So in terms of value, I think it's worth it, but it's up to you. And that's gonna do it. Let me know if you guys have any comments about the Sounds of KSHMR. Did you guys try it already? Do you like it? Do you hate it? Do you agree with my opinion? What would you rate it? Let me know.